In this video, I'm going to show you how you can make this handmade card from a card design that you can download and print out. That's coming up. Hi, my name is Claire from makinghandmadecards.com and welcome back to the Valentine's and Romantic Card Making series, where I do my best in each video to inspire and help you guys as crafters to make stunning handmade cards that have that wow factor. Now, I absolutely love this card, partly because of its simplicity. It actually can be used for other occasions aside Valentine's, for example, a wedding card, an anniversary card, or just a card that says hi to a loved one. And here's the sheet that I'm going to use. It's actually from the Sweetie Pie Quick and Easy Cards kit, and I'm actually going to use the larger 5x5 card. So here you can see actually a card blank that's already been printed out and cut out and folded, and that's the smaller version. I just want to show you the difference. So you get two different sizes, as you can see here. I've actually printed out the larger version because that's what we're going to be using to make this card. I actually printed it out twice. I had to because I ran out of ink. As you can see there, the pink and the yellow ran out. So that's okay though, because I'm going to actually use this part here that I'm cutting out as the actual mat, the matted layer, which you'll see more about that later. So let me just cut these hearts out. I'll use those hearts as well because we're going to add a little bit of decoupage as you saw in the original card. So I'm going to cut out the 3 hearts, just roughly, and I'm also just going to roughly cut around the matted layer. And I'm going to do this because I'm going to actually stick them down onto card. And now let me just cut out the main heart, the central heart. And by the way, if you're wondering how I put all of those parts onto one sheet, I actually run a printing webinar, and you're more than welcome to come and attend it. If you'd like to find out more printing tips and how to put the elements all on one sheet, then just head on over to the printing webinar registration page. I'll pop the details below the video for you in the description. I also thought you might be interested in seeing my spray box because I obviously use a lot of spray glue. What I do is I pop the pieces of paper that I want to spray glue into this box. I give the pieces of paper a spray, and then as soon as I've done that, I will shut the flaps down so that all of the spray glue fumes and the glue itself don't escape out of the box and into the atmosphere. It takes a few seconds to settle, then I can reopen it and I've got lovely spray glued paper. So here I'm actually sticking the spray glued paper down onto some card. I'm just positioning the elements as closely as possible so that I don't waste any card, and then I'm using my paper folder just to smooth it down, just to make sure that everything is stuck down nicely. And the final element is the mat that I cut down earlier. So now it's time to cut out. Always, if you're using a craft knife, then use a metal edged ruler. If you use a plastic ruler, then you'll find that you'll end up shaving parts of the edge off. So make sure that your ruler is metal or that it has a metal edge. Okay, and then it's time to cut out the hearts. Little tip when it comes to cutting out, try and keep your scissors in the same position. What you want to do is move the paper. If you find that you're kind of squirming and moving around with your scissors and what you're cutting out, then try actually focusing on keeping your scissors fairly steady and actually moving the paper instead. You'll find that a lot easier, and you'll find that it's perfect for precision cutting. Okay, I'm going to fast forward this a bit. Now if you'll notice here, these hearts have black outlines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a black felt tip along the edges just to make sure, because when you move the card you're going to see those white edges. So instead of just leaving them like that, I prefer to run a felt tip along the edges just to give it that crisp and professional finish. So there are different ways to do this. I'm going to show you one way to do it in this video, and that is just to hold the element in the air and to run your felt tip along the edge. As you can see here, this is the reason why I do it. If you see on the left here, the heart looks a lot more professional and finished. So let's do the other hearts. And if you can see, I'm holding the hearts so that the felt tip is coming towards it from the back. That way, if I slip, it goes onto the back and not onto my lovely printed side. Now I'm going to show you an example here. You don't need to do this obviously, but what if you slip when you're doing these black edges? What happens if you slip? Well, how about adding a shadow on one side? Okay, so now I've got the mat here and I'm going to crop it down because we want to add a margin so that we can later add a pricking border. So I'm just measuring out a border here and I'm going to fast forward it a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and trim that down. So that's our trimmed mat, and as you can see it's going to be there, and as you can see this is what it's going to look like when it's on the card. So let's emboss it now. If you notice, the final card, it actually has an embossed damask pattern on it. So I've got an A4 embossing folder and I'm placing the printed side up, and I'm also placing the embossing folder so that the pattern will be embossed as opposed to debossed. Now it's pretty important that it keeps its position, so I'm going to use some removable tape. It's quite important in this case that it keeps its position because I want to be quite precise about where that embossed pattern is. So I'm using some removable tape by Scotch. So I'm going to close that embossing folder up and run it through my die cutting machine. And here we are, I've run it through the die cutting machine, and as you can see it's got a lovely deep embossed damask pattern. I'm going to remove the tape. And now I'm going to add a very, very thin border, a pink border, and I do that by making a pink mat. This is a pink piece of card from Coordinations. And I'm using a pink border just to tie everything together really. So here's what it's going to look like if I kind of give you a quick idea. That's what it's going to look like. So let me grab the hearts. I'm not too pleased about the matching colour on here, but what I can do is change the heart colours a little bit by running some colour over it. So I'm just using my colour chart here of my alcohol pen colour chart. I'm just going to find a colour that matches the mat as closely as possible. So I think that medium pink there is a good choice. So just to double check, I'm just going to scribble over these hearts, a scrap version of the hearts. Now because it's an alcohol pen it will dry lighter. But as you can see here, it gives me a fairly good idea that I think that that would be a good match. So let me just grab the hearts and some scrap paper. Now the thing to remember with alcohol pens or alcohol ink and printed paper is that depending on the ink you use, it might not be steadfast. It might actually bleed when you run an alcohol pen over it. So my answer to that is just to dab the pen very lightly over the dark areas. For example, I know that if I scribbled over the black outline, it would bleed and it would just look like a big old black smudge. In case you're interested, I'm using a Spectrum Noir pen and it's number 137 medium pink. I'm going to go over the middle heart as well because I'm going to decoupage it and there will be a layer over that heart, but you might be able to see a little bit underneath it, so I'm just going to run some colour over that as well. Again, dabbing the pen. I do get some black ink onto the pen nib, so I just run my pen on the scrap paper and that will get rid of the black from the nib. Okay. I'm just going to tidy it up a little bit by using the finer end of the alcohol pen. So that's the 3 hearts done. Let's do the top heart, which is the middle heart. Again, I'm going to dab over the edges because I don't want to smear that black, and run it on the scrap paper when I get too much black ink on the nib. It looks quite dark here, but remember, alcohol pens do go on quite dark. In a few minutes that colour will lighten up. Okay, just giving it a good coat so it's nicely saturated. Clean the nib. So let's see, in comparison. Okay, well that heart is quite dark, but I still think it's quite bright, so I may have to tone that down. In the meantime though, let's just save some card. I'm sorry, but there's a lot of card there under, that's just not going to get shown. This is called gutting. Basically, the embossed mat is going to go on top of this. So why waste the card that's underneath, right? So you just gut it, which is essentially cutting out the part that's not seen. And then I'm going to grab my card blank and I'm just going to score it along that grey line, the grey fold line, using my paper folder and my metal ruler. And I'm going to fold it. Use the paper folder to make that fold nice and crisp. And there you go, there's the gutted mat, and then over the top is my embossed mat. So there you can see there's a tiny bit of colour just peeking through, but that's enough to make a difference. And then the hearts will go over the top like that. So that middle heart, I don't know, it's a bit too bright for my liking. So I am going to use a warm grey, Spectrum Noir G1 warm grey, just to warm it up and dull it down a bit because it's pretty bright. I just want it to match in with the pink matte. The other thing you could do actually is adjust the colour of the matte, but I quite like that matte colour, so I just want to match the hearts to the matte colour as opposed to the other way around. But you can colour the matte instead of the hearts if you prefer. Let's add some wet glue. I'm using wet glue to the mat because whenever you need to position something, it's probably best that you use wet glue because it gives you that maneuverability. If you use tape, when you lay it down, that's pretty much it. You can't really move it around, whereas as you can see here, it lets me maneuver it a little bit. Okay, let's get the piercing mat out, and we're going to just shape those hearts into a little dome shape. I'm using my ball-ended embossing tool, and if you don't have a piercing mat, then you could try using a mouse mat. That might work as well. So that's one heart done. Let me just do the other heart. Just giving it a good dome shape. If you notice, I'm doing the hearts on either side because I'm actually putting this third heart on top, and I want quite a flat surface on which to put it onto. Okay, so those are now nicely shaped into a little dome. Time to get the glue gel out. I like using glue gel for this instead of foam squares. You can use foam squares, but of course you don't have such flexibility because glue gel, literally you put it on and you can just place it. You don't even have to stick it down. You just place it onto your card and it will adhere to it. And it will give you lots of dimension. And that's the problem with foam squares, foam pads, or even shaker tape. You've only got one height to play with. So there we go, the hearts have got their glue gel on it. So let me just stick that down onto the card topper. Okay, onto the central heart now. That's been nicely domed. So just squeezing lots of glue gel onto that because that's the one that wants the most height. And because it's domed, we need more glue gel in the centre. Pop the lid back on. And I'm going to use my tweezers just to place it gently. And now I'm just going to position it. There we go. And that just adds lots of lovely dimension. So now let's stick that all onto the card blank. I'm sticking it onto the card blank before I do the piercing, because then it's just easier to gauge where you want to put the border. and I'm going to also pop some right on the edges as well. And I'm using wet glue because wet glue lets me maneuver it into place. Likelihood is if I used double-sided tape, I probably wouldn't position it properly, and then I'd end up tearing the card, so it's just easier for me to use wet glue. So pop that down, make sure it's lined up properly, and you could actually just stop there. That's a nice card in itself, but I'm going to go one step further and I'm going to add a pierced border. So now I've got my piercing ruler here, and I've got the piercing mat underneath, and I'm popping some hat pins through one of the holes of the piercing ruler so that it goes through into the piercing mat, because you can find that the ruler moves. So that just adds a little bit more stability. And then all you do is get your piercing or pricking tool, pop it into each hole. So I've finished one line, and now I'm going to do the second. Once again, I'm just going to add a hat pin. I'm going to add a couple of hat pins at one end because the card flaps there on the other end. Grab my piercing tool. And prick each hole, and there you have the final card. You can see there it's really dimensional. It's got that really lovely tactile feel because of the pierced borders and also the embossed mat, and don't forget on top of that those decoupage layers. And what I find really finishes it off is the fact that those hearts are domed. They're not just flat decoupage shapes. Thanks for watching to the very end of the video. I have 2 more videos for you to check out, so go ahead and click on any of those images if you're interested in more romantic and Valentine's card ideas. And if you loved this video, please give it a big thumbs up. That lets me know that you liked it. As usual, I would love to hear from you guys via the comments below. If you have any questions about the techniques I used, or questions about the kit, or maybe you already have the kit and you want to share your thoughts, comment below because I'd love to read your comments. And if this is your first time here and you'd love to see more videos like these, just click this subscribe button here. That will subscribe you to my YouTube channel, which is where I post my inspirational card making videos to help inspire you as a crafter. And if you aren't already a newsletter subscriber, then please do check out my site at makinghandmadecards.com. There you can sign up to my free card making newsletter. You'll get 4 free card making video lessons, special offers and coupons for my printable kits, free card making inspiration and projects, and much more. In fact, when you watch the first free video lesson as a newsletter subscriber, you'll get a free printable card making kit. So if you want lots more card making goodies, then it's well worth signing up for that if you haven't already. And I will catch you guys next time. Thanks for watching. And remember, don't just make cards, make stunning cards. Give them that wow factor.